You're not broke because you don't work hard enough. You're broke because you were taught the wrong rules, rules that sound smart, feel responsible, and quietly keep you stuck. You were told to save money, to get a stable job, to avoid risk, to play it safe. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The wealthiest people on earth don't follow the same rules you do. And the most dangerous financial traps today aren't scams, aren't bad luck, they're beliefs. Beliefs you still trust, that silently hold you back. In this video, I'm exposing the biggest financial myths you still believe, and exactly how they're costing you time, freedom, and your future. This is the first lie most people ever learn about money, and the most dangerous one, because it doesn't sound like a lie, it sounds noble, responsible, even moral. You were taught this before you understood money, before you understood systems, before you understood leverage. Work hard, show up early, stay late, be reliable, be loyal, be patient. And one day it will all pay off. That belief shapes everything: your career choices, your tolerance for stress, your willingness to accept exhaustion as normal. And for a while, it seems true. Hard work does get rewarded, just not in the way you think. If hard work didn't work at all, no one would believe it. The system is smarter than that. It rewards hard work just enough to keep you invested. You get a promotion, a raise, praise, more responsibility, not freedom, not ownership, not control, just more weight. You work hard so they trust you. They trust you, so they give you more, and slowly, invisibly, effort becomes expectation. You don't realize it yet. But something subtle has happened. Your value is no longer measured by results. It's measured by availability. Look around any workplace. Who works the hardest? Usually the people with the least power, the least flexibility, the least ownership, the ones who can't afford to stop. Hard work clusters at the bottom, leverage clusters at the top. That's not an accident. If effort created wealth, the poorest neighborhoods would be the richest. Construction workers would own cities, nurses would own hospitals, teachers would own school systems, but they don't, because the system doesn't reward effort. It rewards position. Here is the rule no one teaches you in school. Income is not tied to how hard you work. It's tied to how replaceable you are. Read that again. If you disappear tomorrow, how long before someone replaces you? How expensive is that replacement? How much value do you uniquely control? If the answer is not long, not expensive, not much, then no amount of effort will ever make you wealthy. You can run faster on a treadmill, but you're still on a treadmill. The hardest workers are often the last to escape. Why? Because they're dependable, and dependability is rewarded with responsibility, pressure, expectations, but rarely with equity. You become too valuable to promote out of your role, too reliable to risk losing, too useful to replace. So you get stuck doing the thing you're best at forever, not because you failed, but because you succeeded inside the wrong game. There are two ways to earn money: linear effort. Leverage. Linear effort is simple. You work, you get paid, you stop, the money stops. Leverage is different. Code, media, systems, capital. Ownership. Leverage allows one decision to scale. One video, right arrow, millions of views. One product, right arrow, thousands of buyers. One system, right arrow, years of output. Hard work can build leverage, but leverage is what creates wealth. Most people never cross that bridge. They keep trying to work harder in a game where effort has a ceiling. There are only 24 hours in a day. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how motivated, you can work weekends, skip vacations, burn evenings, but eventually you hit the wall. Your body notices, your mind dulls, your relationships erode, and here's the cruel part: the ceiling applies only to people who trade time for money. The ones above you, they removed time from the equation. This myth doesn't just limit income, it attacks identity. If you believe hard work equals success, then lack of success feels like a personal failure. So when progress stalls, you don't question the system, you question yourself. You think, I should push harder, I'm not disciplined enough, others must be stronger than me. So you double down, and that's how people burn out, while blaming themselves for structural limits. Hard work becomes a shield. As long as you're exhausted, you don't have to ask harder questions. Questions like, is this even scalable? Who owns the upside here? Why does my effort benefit others more than me? Exhaustion keeps you compliant. Busy people don't rebel. Tired minds don't redesign systems. they survive. People who build wealth learn a different equation. Effort is an input. Ownership is the multiplier. They ask different questions. What do I own? What grows while I sleep? What benefits from repetition? They still work hard, but their effort goes into building once, scaling forever, not repeating the same motion for decades. Because it benefits the system. If people believed effort alone wasn't enough, they demand ownership, they demand leverage, they demand a share of upside. So the story stays simple: work hard and wait, and if it doesn't work, work harder. At some point, everyone feels it, that quiet moment when you realize you're good at what you do, you've been consistent, you've been responsible, but the finish line keeps moving. You don't feel lazy, you feel stuck. That's not a motivation problem. That's a myth collapsing. Hard work is not useless. It's just incomplete. Hard work should be used to acquire leverage, build assets, create ownership, escape replaceability, not to impress managers, not to win approval, not to stay busy. Effort without leverage is sacrifice. Effort with leverage is strategy. So if you've been working hard and wondering why it hasn't translated into freedom, it's not because you're broken, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you're unlucky, it's because you were taught the wrong equation, and until that equation changes, no amount of effort will change the result, and this is only the first myth. Saving money feels like progress, it feels disciplined, it feels mature, it feels like you're finally doing things right. You spend less, you cut back, you say no to small pleasures today so you can feel safer tomorrow, and everyone praises you for it. Friends call you responsible. Family calls you smart. Financial advice books nod approvingly, because saving money isn't just encouraged, it's moralized. Saving is one of the first financial behaviors we're rewarded for. As children, we're praised for not spending. We're taught to put some aside. We're told security comes from restraint. So saving becomes more than a habit, it becomes an identity. You don't just save money, you become a saver, careful, prepared, low risk. And once an idea becomes part of who you are, questioning it feels dangerous. No one says this out loud, but the promise is implied. If you save consistently and avoid mistakes, you'll be okay. Okay becomes the goal, not wealthy, not free, just okay. And for many people, that feels like success. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Saving is a defensive move. Wealth is an offensive one. And confusing the two keeps people stuck for decades. Watching a savings account grow is emotionally satisfying. Numbers go up, balances increase. It feels tangible, unlike investing, unlike building something uncertain, unlike risking failure. Saving feels clean, no volatility, no complexity, no uncomfortable learning curve, just discipline. But there's a problem hiding beneath that comfort. Money sitting still is not neutral. It's decaying every year. Inflation quietly erodes purchasing power. Your money buys less food, less housing, less security, less freedom. And it does this invisibly. You don't see it on your bank app. You don't feel it day to day, but decade by decade, saving becomes a slow leak. You feel safer while getting poorer in real terms. Let's be honest, most people save a few hundred per month, maybe a few thousand per year, even with perfect discipline. What does that become? Not freedom, not leverage, not generational wealth. At best, a safety net, a buffer, a delay against crisis. Saving protects you from falling, but it doesn't lift you upward. And the longer you rely on it as a strategy, the more time you lose. Here's where the myth becomes dangerous. Saving trains you to avoid risk. You start seeing money not as a tool, but as something fragile that must be protected. So you hesitate, you delay investing, you avoid opportunities, you overthink every decision. You tell yourself, I'll invest later, I need more saved first, I'm not ready yet. Years pass and later never arrives. Many people say they save because they're being smart, but often they're saving because they're scared of losing money, making mistakes, looking foolish, being wrong. Saving feels safe because it avoids judgment. No one criticizes someone for saving, but no one gets rich doing it either. This is uncomfortable to hear, but people who only save often struggle more than those who invest imperfectly. Why? Because mistakes teach faster than caution ever will. Risk takers learn how markets move, how value is created, how compounding actually works. Savers stay spectators, watching, waiting, protecting, while others build momentum. This phrase ruins lives. Once I save enough, then I'll invest. Then I'll start. Then I'll take risks. Enough never comes because safety is a moving target. More expenses appear, new fears emerge, responsibilities increase, and the threshold keeps rising. Saving becomes procrastination dressed as prudence. Banks love savers. They borrow your money cheaply, then lend it out at higher rates. Inflation loves savers. It eats quietly while you feel secure. The system rewards people who deploy capital, not those who hoard it. Saving alone feeds the machine. Yes, wealthy people save, but not the way you were taught. They don't save instead of investing. They save because they invest. Their savings are temporary, strategic, deployed intentionally. Your savings are permanent, untouched, fear-protected, same word, completely different function. Saving has a role, a critical one, but it's not wealth creation. Saving is for emergency buffers, short-term liquidity, stability during volatility. Saving is a foundation, not the house, and building foundations forever means never living inside anything meaningful. At some point, you must stop asking, how do I protect this money? And start asking, how do I make this money work? That question changes behavior. It pushes learning, forces discomfort, requires responsibility, but it's the only path forward. So if you've been saving faithfully and still feel far from freedom, it's not because you're irresponsible. It's not because you're behind. It's because you were given a shield and told it was a sword. And until you stop confusing protection with progress, your money will stay safe and your future will stay small. Debt is one of the first things you were taught to fear, not question, not understand, fear. You were warned early, don't borrow, avoid loans. Debt will ruin your life. And to be fair, for many people, it does, but that's not because debt is evil. It's because they were never taught the difference between debt and leverage. Debt has consequences. People lose sleep over it. Marriages break because of it. Lives collapse under it. So the lesson becomes simple. All debt is dangerous. Avoid it at all costs. Simple rules feel safe. Nuance feels risky. But here's the problem. The world is not simple. And the people who understand debt use it as a weapon. There are two kinds of debt, not morally, not emotionally, functionally. Debt that consumes, debt that produces. Most people are only taught about the first, so they assume the second doesn't exist. Bad debt buys things that lose value, don't generate income, increase monthly pressure. It demands repayment without helping you repay it. This is the debt people drown in. And this is the debt everyone warns you about, rightfully so, but stopping there creates a blind spot. Good debt behaves differently. It buys assets, generates cash flow, increases earning capacity, scales opportunity. Good debt works while you sleep. It doesn't ask for sacrifice without return. It pays its own rent. Because good debt requires financial literacy, patience, risk tolerance, responsibility, it's easier to say all debt is bad than to teach people how to use it. Fear is cheaper than education. Here's something most people never notice. The wealthy don't avoid debt. They avoid bad debt. They borrow at low cost to acquire things that grow faster than the interest. They understand something critical. If an asset grows faster than the cost of borrowing, debt becomes fuel. That single insight changes everything. When you reject all debt, you reject leverage. You tell yourself, I'll wait until I can afford it. I don't want to owe anything. I want to be safe. But here's the reality. You still pay, you just pay differently. You pay with time, missed opportunities, slower growth, delayed compounding. Fear has a cost. It's just invisible. Let's say something uncomfortable. Paying rent forever is also debt. It's just normalized. You owe someone money every month with nothing to show for it. No equity, no upside, no ownership. Yet people will proudly say, I hate debt, while quietly transferring wealth upward for decades. Fear shuts down curiosity. Once you label something dangerous, you stop learning about it. You don't ask, how does this work? When is it useful? Who uses it successfully? You just avoid it. and avoidance feels like safety, until you realize how much ground you've lost. The same system that warns you about debt uses debt aggressively. Corporations borrow, governments borrow, institutions borrow. Why? Because debt allows them to act before they have cash. Speed matters, momentum matters. Waiting until you have enough is often the slowest strategy possible. Because debt magnifies mistakes, and people don't trust themselves. They don't trust their judgment, their discipline, their patience, so they choose safety, but safety without growth becomes stagnation. Debt doesn't ruin people, poor decisions do. Debt simply amplifies what's already there. Discipline, faster progress. Ignorance, faster collapse. That's why fear-based advice exists. It protects people from themselves, but also keeps them from growth. Instead of asking, is debt bad? Ask, what does this debt produce? If the answer is nothing, stress, consumption, run. If the answer is cash flow, growth, skill, equity, study it carefully. Debt isn't a yes or no decision, it's a precision tool. Debt is not the enemy. Ignorance is, fear is, blind rules are. Used poorly, debt enslaves. Used wisely, debt accelerates. And refusing to learn the difference is one of the most expensive decisions a person can make. If you've been afraid of debt your entire life, that fear didn't protect you, it just delayed you. And the longer you avoid understanding leverage, the longer you'll rely only on your own effort. This myth doesn't scare you, it soothes you. It doesn't shout, it whispers. Be patient, be loyal, be grateful, and above all, be stable. A stable job promises predictability, a fixed paycheck, a routine, a sense of order in a chaotic world. You know when money comes in, you know what bills go out. You can plan, and planning feels like control. So stability becomes the goal, not freedom. Not upside, not ownership, just stability. When you accept a stable job, you also accept an invisible trade. You trade upside for certainty. You trade control for permission. You trade long-term growth for short-term comfort. And at first, it feels reasonable, because fear of uncertainty is stronger than desire for freedom. Here's the part no one likes to admit: jobs don't fail slowly. They fail suddenly. One email, one meeting, one restructuring. Years of loyalty erased in minutes. Stability doesn't mean safe, it means temporarily predictable, and those are not the same thing. Let's strip away the emotion. If one employer, one paycheck, one decision maker controls 100% of your income, you are not secure, you are concentrated. And concentration is risk. Real security comes from diversification. Yet most people diversify their investments, their expenses, their responsibilities, but not their income. Because the risk is delayed, you don't feel danger today, so you assume it doesn't exist. But risk isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, building pressure beneath the surface. Technology changes, markets shift, skills become obsolete, and stability disappears overnight. Many people stay because they feel loyal. I've been here for years. They gave me a chance. I owe them. But loyalty in a system without ownership is one-sided. The company can pivot, downsize, automate, outsource without asking your permission. Loyalty doesn't protect you, relevance does. Stability discourages questioning. As long as the paycheck arrives, you don't ask, is this scalable? Is this replaceable? Is this future-proof? Stability keeps people compliant because uncertainty requires thinking, and thinking leads to change. No matter how good your job is, there is a limit, a salary cap, a promotion ceiling, a hierarchy. Someone above you decides how much you're worth, when you advance, when you stop. And no matter how talented you are, you don't control the rules. Because rejecting it creates anxiety. If stability isn't security, then what is? That question is uncomfortable, so people protect the myth. They say, at least it's guaranteed, at least it's steady, at least it's safe, at least is the language of lowered expectations. Income is money, security is control. You can have income without security, and security without high income. Jobs offer income, they rarely offer control, and without control, security is an illusion. Real security comes from multiple income streams, skills that compound, ownership of assets, the ability to adapt quickly. Security is not a paycheck, it's optionality, the ability to say no. Because building real security takes effort before it pays, stability pays immediately. So people choose comfort now, over freedom later, and years pass. Many people feel it in their 30s or 40s, that subtle fear: if this disappears, what do I have? And for the first time, stability feels fragile. A job can be useful, it can be a foundation, but it is not security. Security comes from independence, not dependence, from control, not permission, from options, not guarantees. If you've been clinging to stability, it wasn't foolish, it was human, but comfort without leverage eventually becomes a cage, and the longer you confuse predictability with protection, the harder it becomes to leave. This myth doesn't insult you, it protects you. It gives you a reason to stop asking questions, because if wealth is luck, then failure isn't your fault, and if success is random, then effort feels pointless, so the myth settles in quietly and stays. Calling rich people lucky reduces complexity. It turns years of decisions into accidents. It turns strategy into coincidence. It turns patterns into chaos, and chaos is comforting, because chaos means there's nothing to learn, nothing to change, nothing to risk. You can stay exactly where you are and feel justified. This belief does one critical thing: it removes responsibility. If someone succeeded because of luck, then you don't have to study their behavior. You don't have to examine their decisions, their risks, their sacrifices, their timing. You can dismiss it all with one word: lucky. Wealth is visible after it's built. You see the car, the house, the lifestyle. You don't see the years of uncertainty, the failed attempts, the boredom, the invisible compounding. So the story feels incomplete, and incomplete stories get filled with assumptions. Yes, luck exists, but it behaves differently than people think. Luck doesn't usually arrive as a miracle. It arrives as a meeting, a timing advantage, a prepared response. And here's the key: luck favors people who are positioned to receive it. You can't benefit from an opportunity you're not prepared to act on. Because the preparation happened quietly, years earlier, while no one was watching, while the person was learning, building, experimenting, failing privately. By the time the lucky break appears, it's already too late to copy. Wealth follows patterns, industries, technologies, timing cycles. People who build wealth often notice trends early, act before consensus, endure discomfort longer. From the outside, it looks sudden; from the inside, it feels overdue. If success is luck, why study? Why plan? Why risk embarrassment? You wait, you hope, you tell yourself, if it's meant to happen, it will. But waiting is also a decision, and it compounds too. Most people aren't unlucky, they're unprepared. They don't build skills before they're needed. They don't take small risks early. They don't position themselves near opportunity. So when opportunity passes, they call it bad luck. Because challenging it threatens identity. If wealth isn't luck, then behavior matters. And if behavior matters, then inaction becomes visible. So the myth stays protected. It's easier to criticize the wealthy than to confront your own potential. When you believe wealth is luck, you stop investing in skills, networks, knowledge, optionality. You live reactively, and reactive people rarely get lucky. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, risk meets timing, skill meets demand. None of those are random, they're built, slowly, deliberately. Have you noticed some people seem lucky over and over? That's not coincidence, that's positioning. They are visible, capable, ready. So when chances appear, they're already in the room. It breaks when you see patterns, when you notice the same behaviors, the same mindsets, the same early discomfort across different wealthy people. Luck doesn't repeat itself systematically, strategy does. Rich people aren't just lucky, they are more prepared than you see, more patient than you imagine, more willing to look foolish early. Luck may open a door, but systems keep it open. If you've been telling yourself success is random, that belief didn't protect you, it paralyzed you, because as long as you wait for luck, you never build the conditions that attract it. This myth doesn't come from economics. It comes from emotion, from stories, from culture, from things you heard growing up and never questioned, that money changes people, that wealth makes you selfish, that wanting more means something is wrong with you, and it sounds moral. Believing money is bad makes you feel good about not having it. It reframes lack as righteousness. You're not struggling, you're principled, you're not under-earning, you're humble, and slowly, without realizing it, you start associating financial ambition with guilt. Once money becomes evil, you subconsciously push it away. You undercharge, undersell, avoid negotiation, reject opportunities. Not because you can't earn more, but because part of you believes you shouldn't. This is one of the most powerful forms of self-sabotage because it feels ethical. Money does not corrupt character, it amplifies it. If someone is generous, money makes them more generous. If someone is greedy, money makes it visible. Power doesn't create flaws, it exposes them. It gives people an enemy instead of asking, how do I use money responsibly? They ask, how do I avoid becoming a bad person? So they stay small, safe, financially powerless, and powerless people rarely change systems. This is uncomfortable, but important. When ethical, thoughtful people avoid money, who ends up controlling it? Not the most moral, the most aggressive. Your rejection doesn't make money disappear, it just hands control to someone else. Money doesn't ask who you are, it asks what you'll do with influence. Avoiding it doesn't make you virtuous, it just makes you irrelevant. Money is neutral, it reflects values, it scales intent, and refusing to engage with it doesn't make the world better, it just limits your impact. If you've believed money was something to fear, that belief didn't make you pure, it made you powerless. And the final myth is the one that keeps people stuck forever. This myth sounds reasonable, logical, almost kind, because it lets you rest. It says, you missed your chance. You should have started earlier. The window is closed. And once you accept it, you stop trying. Because it ends stories before they begin, it turns time into a weapon. Every year that passes becomes evidence, and regret becomes identity. It's too late is rarely about time. It's about fear of starting as a beginner, making mistakes publicly, realizing what you're capable of, so the mind finds a reason to stop. Age becomes the excuse. You don't need perfect timing, you need momentum, and momentum doesn't care how old you are, it only cares whether you start. Here's the irony, doing nothing makes time feel faster, trying something new makes time feel meaningful. People who say it's too late usually feel worse 5 years later, not because they failed, but because they never began. Because it removes responsibility. If it's too late, then effort is pointless. And if effort is pointless, you don't have to risk disappointment. It's emotional self-protection. Most people who build something meaningful wish they started earlier, but none of them regret starting when they did. The real regret is waiting. It's not too late, you're just early in a different phase, and that phase still compounds. Time will pass whether you act or not. The only question is, will you still believe the same myths when it does? These myths weren't designed to ruin you. They were designed to manage you, to keep you predictable, compliant, contained. They didn't arrive as lies, they arrived as common sense, passed down, repeated, rewarded, until questioning them felt dangerous. But the moment you see them, you can't unsee them. And once you stop playing by rules that were never meant to help you win, everything changes. Not overnight, not magically. But internally, you stop blaming yourself for systems that had ceilings built in. You stop confusing safety with progress. You stop waiting for luck and start building position. You stop fearing money and start understanding it. You stop telling yourself it's too late and start asking what's possible now, that moment, that shift. That's what Capital Lux is built for. This channel exists for people who sense the rules are hidden, for those who want clarity, not noise at Capital Lux. We don't sell motivation, we expose the real game, money, power, psychology, so you can think clearly, move deliberately, and build quietly before the world notices. If this video changed how you see money, then it did its job. And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to Capital Lux, stay curious, and keep questioning the rules most people never do.